Don't know about you, but for me, it feels like this week is going to have at least one major surprise. And by that I mean the trade that none of us saw coming. You know, every year we talk about a trade that no one saw coming that just happens. Bob McKenzie gets out of hibernation and drops Hurl to the Vegas Golden Knights. Boom! And then he's off. Or Jacob Vrana for Anthony Mantha. That was a shocker a few years ago. But do you not get the feeling with the amount of names that are out there already, and there's some large names out there in advance of trade deadline on Friday, that there's going to be one that we're all missing on? The shocker, the surprise. And maybe if I say, I anticipate a surprise, it won't be a surprise. Discuss amongst yourselves. By the way, welcome to the program. The Sheet here Monday to Friday, 3 o'clock Eastern on your daily Faceoff YouTube channel. That is where you are right now. If you are watching live, if you're listening, thank you for your ears on your favorite podcast platform. Zach Phillips, I'm sure, had a very busy weekend handling the affairs for the Toronto Maple Leafs games against the New York Rangers and the Pittsburgh Penguins. One real quick thing. So I want to focus a lot on trade deadline today. And Chris Patrick, GM of the Washington Capitals, putting pen to paper on Charlie Lindgren. I wonder if Chris himself was a lefty. He's got 2 lefty goaltenders. He's got 2 right catch goalies.
Yeah.
I love afternoon games. Players hate them. Coaches hate them. Sometimes it's hard for fans to make them, but just as someone that consumes the majority of his hockey on television, either riding the bike or ironing the couch with my ass, I love afternoon games because they're just big and messy and sloppy and a lot of turnovers, and there's a sort of junior hockey element about all the mistakes for all of it. That game yesterday afternoon was fantastic. It was a coach's nightmare. It was sloppy on both sides, some questionable goaltending, some really bad decisions made in all 3 periods, and then in the overtime. But at the end of it, just a really enjoyable experience. And you got like a score ripped out of the pages of 1987.
Yeah, I know. I was talking about it in the post-game show in the Leafs Nation After Dark. I'm like, how can you not be entertained by that? We just saw 11 goals. The Leafs, they had a lead. Yeah. They lost the lead. They tied the game up. They were down. They take the lead back, send the thing to overtime. Like, it was fun hockey. It was a lot of goals, and it was funny. I was listening to William Nylander after doing his Tarps Off interview, by the way, and he's like,
awesome.
He said basically what you said, except for one difference. He said the players loved it. He said the fans love it, the players love it. I don't know if the coaches love it. All right, fair enough. I mean, I guess you love it. You put up a bunch of points and got the OT winner today, so fair enough.
No kidding. By the way, he's on this real sort of streak. Like, all players that are out there, the great ones always give out what we like to call bad information, lead everyone to believe they're doing one thing when they're doing something completely different. He may be the master at it right now. When it comes to faking passes and shooting or faking shots at passing, he might be the best in the NHL right now today as we say this. And you need a new name for your post-game show, by the way, when it's in the afternoon. Don't know that you can call it Leafs After Dark.
Before
I'm sure you
dusk.
made that joke yesterday. Pre-dusk.
I did.
Leafs pre-dusk. All right, well, the big news of the weekend, the Seth Jones trade, and we're getting into that in a couple of moments. The Rangers and Avalanche getting frisky as well. The Minnesota Wild say, hey, you can always come back here. We always got room for you here, Gustav Nyquist. So let's get right into it because Chris Patrick's going to join us in about 10 minutes' time, but I want to give enough time here that we can throw around the topics of the day and the topics from the weekend as well. So Daily Outlines, presented as always by our friends and partners at FanDuel, North America's #1 sportsbook app provider. And the top story continues to be, and we'll wonder what the cascading results are going to be after this deal. Seth Jones is now a member of the Florida Panthers. We're going to get to the Matthew Tkachuk part about this deal in a couple of moments. As I mentioned, Chris Patrick, the general manager of the Washington Capitals, will be aboard, pen to paper. Charlie Lindgren, they have their goaltending wrapped up for the foreseeable future. And both of them are right catch goalies. Hello, Mason and Garon. Shayna Goldman from The Athletic and the Too Many Men podcast will stop by. We'll have a look at the trades, full analysis of them from the weekend, and we'll get Shayna's thoughts on what Jared Bednar, head coach of the Colorado Avalanche, said when he was asked about the analytics around Ryan Lindgren. And there it is. It says LTIR, but that's our cute little way today of saying we're going to talk about Matthew Tkachuk. And I'll tell you what. In my perfect universe, in my perfect irony is dead universe, can please someone tonight after the game, because Tampa is playing Florida, can someone please ask Nikita Kucherov what he thinks about Matthew Tkachuk going on LTIR? Please. It's so simple. Just someone ask Kucherov what he thinks about it. And Jack Hughes, just awful, like just an accident, caught up with Jack Eichel and goes careening into the boards. Head, shoulder, it all looks bad. Does this change what the New Jersey Devils do in and around trade deadline? Does it hasten any decisions for Tom Fitzgerald, GM of the New Jersey Devils? We'll get into that coming up here in a couple of moments. In the meantime, so two big guests, and we got a ton of topics we want to get to today. And you're going to crack the whip. You're going to be the lion tamer again. And you're going to say, Marek, you're going to stay on point here. We have a schedule. We have a script. And damn it, you're going to stick to it. No longer sloppy host. And I will fight you every inch of the way. I will be for you. Here, this is my vow to you. From here until whenever this show is over, not today, but like in general, I will be like a Rubik's Cube that fights back. You may have big designs about making things. You ever try to think about like what a Rubik's Cube would be like if it actually fought back? That's going to be me on you. I'm doing it right now.
Okay.
We should be getting into topics, but this Rubik's Cube is fighting back. Seth Jones, now a member of the Florida Panthers. And I had a chance I didn't get to watch or listen to it live, but went back and listened to Morning Cup of Hockey from this morning. And I thought the guys were bang on, and Goldie was great. And, I agree with Colby Cohen on this one. This is not a situation where you can say one team won the trade, because they both had different ideas of what a win is, dependent on where they're at in their winning cycle. The Florida Panthers still have designs on winning another Stanley Cup to go back-to-back, and the Chicago Blackhawks, as we've talked about countless times, are in the beginning stages of a rebuild, are in some type of rebuild. They maybe hope that they would be further along on their rebuild than they already are, but they do have a key piece now in Spencer Knight. Now they do have that goaltender for now and the future. We'll see Spencer Knight tonight as he makes his debut for the Chicago Blackhawks. And all of a sudden, there's another bullet in the chamber for Paul Maurice. He has another top four defenseman in Seth Jones, and you have to wonder, and you have to expect, I suppose, that we'll see a better version of Seth Jones with the Florida Panthers than we saw with the Chicago Blackhawks, because as we've talked about, losing for a long time and being out of any playoff picture come Christmas time can wear on you. Oh, not that you can't, as this, and Colby Cohen nailed it this morning. So look, you still have to show up and be a pro. But it's hard, man. It's hard to play that many empty calorie games season after season. Your thoughts on this one? I thought it was and I got to say, as much as I just stuck it to Kyle Davidson last week here on the program, on the blog as well, I didn't know that he was going to be able to get that much. Like, honestly, like he got 2 first-round picks. Spencer Knight's a first-round pick, and he got another first-round pick, either in 26 or 27. Good on Kyle Davidson and the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah, additionally on that, I was looking too, because I don't know if it's the same for you. It feels like Spencer Knight's been in the league for 10 years. Like, maybe it's just because I've kind of it feels like his name's always been around, but I kind of looked and I'm like, oh, this guy's really young as well. So there's an opportunity for a goalie of the future. You've addressed a potential issue here, or hopefully you've addressed an issue, I should say, with the goaltending situation and moving forward like that. I don't know. I think that this was basically a home run for both sides. We had heard Elliot last week talk about it and say maybe Florida would be a potential fit. I just didn't really know how they were going to make that work, but Chicago doesn't take too much, because that was also a worry, retention. But I don't know. This was basically when I saw it and I saw the return, I'm like, yeah, hockey trade, Jeff. Hockey trade.
Listen, the Florida Panthers have been in business for a while looking for another defenseman. Before I went to the Pittsburgh Penguins, there were all kinds of talk about Erik Karlsson going to the Florida Panthers. So, we probably shouldn't be surprised, considering how Bill Zito has been looking for one more elite level defenseman to join the mix, and he got his guy. And for the Chicago Blackhawks, I don't worry about their retention at all. I know it's a lot of years, but listen, this team's not going to be good for a while. I would just be blunt. There's not going to be any sort of miracle turnaround. There's no one player who's showing up. And listen, they may get better in free agency, have a lot of cap space to work with, and there's some very interesting players, specifically wingers, that are available this time around for teams in free agency. I just don't expect them to be significantly better next season. But it's an indication to Connor Bedard that, listen, we're going to address all the different positions here. Now they have another first-round draft pick they can use as an asset to bring in another player. And the key position, how many times have we said it? If you have the goaltender, it's 70% of your team. If you don't, it's 100%. Now we'll see if Spencer Knight can string this together for an entire season or seasons for the Chicago Blackhawks, but it looks as if they have their goaltender for now and the future. Now they have a million goaltenders there as well, which we'll have to sort it out. And if you're Drew Commesso somewhere, you're saying like who is the goaltender in waiting when Rick DiPietro signed that 15-year deal with the New York Islanders? Because all of a sudden you think like you're waiting in the wings and you're going to be the starter and you're going to be the guy. Next thing you know, bam, either the starter signs the DiPietro 15-year deal or they bring in Spencer Knight. Sorry, yeah. Drew Commesso, there's a new mule in the stall.
Well, actually, I had seen Stephen Ellis as well make the point on Twitter. I think he said that they had felt comfortable and excited about the goaltenders that they had coming up in their prospects, and then recently their scouts have kind of started to change opinions on those guys. So getting Spencer Knight in there is just a little bit added reassurance on that as well. So kind of nice. And there you go, a little extra from our guy Stephen Ellis, who I'm certain has seen a lot of hockey from all of those guys involved.
He has seen every goaltending prospect that the Chicago Blackhawks have, and probably has scouting reports on all of them and full background, which he can quote chapter and verse if we brought him on the program. Speaking of bringing on the program, someone that I've wanted to have on the show for a while now. I'm glad to have him aboard, and a big thank you to the Washington Capitals general manager who made some news early in the morning today, putting pen to paper on Charlie Lindgren as a 3-year, $9 million deal. Chris Patrick joins me now on the sheet. Chris, thanks so much for stopping by today, and thanks for starting the news cycle off for all of us in hockey media today. So on behalf of everybody, thank you.
No, hey, we're always looking to help you guys out, right?
Well, okay. So let me start with this. I was wondering before you came on, are you a lefty by any chance? Do you throw with your left hand? Are you a right catch guy? Because you're getting the market cornered on right catch goaltenders here and locking them up long term. Are you a southpaw by any chance?
I'm not. Yeah, I'm all righty. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I just really like right catching goalies.
One of the things that it's funny, I was having a conversation with this. Actually, this goes back a number of years. So the Blue Jackets when they had who would have been Mason and Garon. I remember talking to someone in Columbus who said, some of the shooters have complained about it, that we're shooting on right catch goaltenders here, but whenever we play, we're playing against traditional goaltenders that catch with their left hand. Has that ever been an issue with the Washington Capitals? Have any players ever said can you mix in a different goaltender or someone else for practice so we can not just acclimatize ourselves to right catch guys?
Yeah, the coaches have talked about that. I haven't heard it, and I haven't heard it through them. If that's been something the players have talked about. We do have the good fortune of having a video coach who also doubles as a third goalie for us at times, and he's a left catching goalie. So I'm sure the guys enjoy when he comes in. One, they get to take free shots at Brett, but also they got a guy that has the glove on the other side to get some shots on as well.
Isn't Brett 6'6" as well? He's a large man too, isn't he?
He's all of 6'6". I think he's more 6'7". Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the goalie situation. I do want to get to trade deadline, and it's impossible for someone like me to have you on and not at least spend a little bit of time on your family, the first family of hockey, as I've always called the Patricks. But trade deadline is here. We're seeing moves already. Blockbuster on Saturday with the Panthers and the Chicago Blackhawks. But we wonder about your Washington Capitals, and how sensitive are you to disrupting the chemistry that's already been established here with this team? Like, are you going into deadline thinking, I don't know if this is going to be trade deadline for us as much as this is going to be tweak deadline for us? We've already made some moves. Everything's going so well that you don't want to budge this thing too much, an inch to the right or an inch to the left. How are you approaching deadline?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, tweak deadline. I think that's the balance for us is, we've had a really, really good group with chemistry both on the ice and off the ice. So, you want to look for ways to improve the team, but you just also have to be careful about doing too much and over tinkering. And like I said the other day, making a deal for the sake of making a deal. I think just as important as adding maybe a piece that helps the team here is our own guys within the room, understanding that we're in early March here. We're obviously in a good spot. We put ourselves in a good spot, but there's a long way to go here between now and when everything's done. And we have to improve our game. We're starting to see teams come in here that are fighting tooth and nail every day for their playoff lives. And we've got to start making sure we're matching their intensity, because come game one of the playoffs, we can't just hope that we're going to turn it on. We have to be ready to go and have been building our game to that point. So I think that's an important piece as well. But for sure, the chemistry of this group has been really strong all year, and I think a big part of the reason why we've had so much success. So everything we're going to do is going to have that in mind.
Is there Chris, is there a part of you that says, I've heard this before from managers as well, this team has done so well, they've jumped over every hurdle we've put in front of them, I owe them something. Do you have that sort of internal pressure on yourself, like, these guys have done everything I asked? Like, look where we are in the standings, look where we are in the division, in the conference, in the league. I owe them something. Do you feel like you owe this team something?
I understand that sentiment. I think you just have to, you hope the players understand, like, you're doing the work and you're evaluating everything that's out there. And it's not like I'm just sitting back and say, hey, team's in a good spot, I can take this week off.
Sure.
I don't need to make calls. Like, you're doing that work, but you also are evaluating what you're hearing with what's the price that you have to pay to make that move. Is that the right thing for the franchise at this point in time? And again, like, for a guy that's been laying it all on the line for, the first 60 games of this season, is it fair to now tell him, okay, you're sitting out for this new guy coming in because we feel like this is the right thing for our team, and you have to weigh that factor as well. So hopefully they understand that that's where we're coming from. And again, like, if we think there's something that makes a lot of sense to improve the team, we'll do it. We won't hesitate to do it. But we just want to be careful. We're making the right move both for now and for the future.
Does it feel like, and I know this is your first deadline in the big chair, but you've been around deadline for a long time here. I don't even know if this is a fair question, but I'll try anyway. Does it feel like prices are really high this year? That's what I keep hearing. Oh, prices are high. Prices are high. Does it feel that way to you?
Yeah, maybe you're talking to more buyers right now, but I feel like anything. I think the price. Every team is going to set what their price is, their initial ask, and then they'll adjust based on what kind of response they're getting. If they're getting multiple teams bidding on the same guy, the price will go up. If they're not getting what they're hoping for, then the price might come down, or it might just be we'll just hold. I think more for me, this deadline at this point, when compared to other deadlines, is I think you have less defined sellers right now. There's a lot of teams that are, hey, we're right in the mix, and we need to give this group a chance to try to make a push here. And maybe come midweek we'll know more, or maybe I'm actually going to try to add a little bit because the group's worked hard to put themselves in this position, and they're 2 points out of a spot, and I want to give them a chance to make it. So it feels like maybe there's 3 or 4 more teams this year that aren't selling that may have in years past, and so that's maybe made the market a little less frothy.
Does the salary cap going up change how you and your colleagues will behave around deadline this year? I.e., once upon a time, coming off of the pandemic, the margin for error, given the flat cap, was really, really small. Like everyone's going to carry a couple of mistakes. It's baked into the pie, but you can't have too many. And so I found that managers tended to trend more conservative. Now that there's a little, it's a little bit looser, looser around the joints as far as the cap goes in the summer. Do you think that changes how managers behave?
I think having the guidance will definitely, to me, what it helps is if you're looking to do maybe a hockey type deal, this deadline, something for a guy that has some term left after this year, a year or 2 years, or even 3 years left on his deal. Now that you have a little visibility into what the cap might be for the next 3 years, you just know you're not going to be caught this summer with, hey, the cap's only going up a couple million, and now we got to scramble to create some space because of what we did at the deadline. So maybe it allows teams to be a little more active, looking at some guys that aren't necessarily rentals.
I want to ask you about a couple of players that have really hit. Like the Washington Capitals had a tremendous offseason. That's not exactly a secret, and I'm not just shining the apple because you're on here with me. Like the evidence is there. What I like about how this team has been constructed is I like that there's established players that are growing up in the Washington Capitals system, and there's also a good, healthy mix of second chance players. There's whether it's Pierre-Luc Dubois, whether it's Dylan Strome, whether it's Jacob Chychrun. Like it's a real nice balance. We started this conversation talking about chemistry and the room and all that. I guess it's a real tip to your pro scouts more than anything else. We've always heard managers say, you know what, get them into our system and we'll unlock the brilliance that's always been in that player. And the Caps have been able to do that. What goes into that? Like, what's the secret ingredient you think that's allowed this team to get to this spot right now?
Yeah, I think part of it is we got to a point where, our core that had been so successful, in I guess the 2010s, right? Up to winning the Stanley Cup in 2018. I mean, they were getting older, and we understood if we want to still be a competitive team, we're going to have to find some players kind of in their early to mid 20s because our amateur staff does a great job, and we do a great job with our draft. But when you're picking 25, 26, 27 every year, like you're not always going to end up with the high end guys, and so you have to look for other ways to add those guys. And so it's just kind of being creative and keeping your ear to the what's going on in the league and looking for those opportunities when they're there, because even though it maybe doesn't seem like it, those opportunities are potentially there more than you realize for a guy like a Dylan Strome or a Pierre-Luc Dubois, who you don't always think guys of that caliber will be available, but for whatever reasons they are, and so when they are, you kind of have to jump on it. And I also give a lot of credit to the group we have here in the locker room, our leadership group, Alex, John, Tom, Nick Dowd. They've done a really good job bringing these new players in over the last few years and making them feel comfortable, making them feel part of the group, getting them up to speed quickly, especially this summer with as many new bodies as we brought in. Like, it was right from the start of camp. You could see that everybody felt comfortable and happy to be here and working towards the same goal. And to me, when you have a group of guys like that in the locker room, that's a huge thing to be able to say, hey, I know for whatever reason it's not working for this guy and his current team, but kind of like you were saying, where managers say, we'll get him into our system, it'll work. That's kind of our thought, is that, hey, we'll get him in because our group's strong enough to take this guy in, and Spencer's open-minded enough to work with the guy, and we think there's something here that could really help us.
Okay, I'm not doing my job if I don't ask you about Alexander Ovechkin. I can't believe we've gone 10 minutes without talking about someone who's poised to break one of the greatest records in the history of the sport. 11 goals shy, and here we are with Alex Ovechkin. Does your group already have like the activation plan ready to launch the minute this happens? Like, I know there's like a lot of contingencies and moving pieces and all that, and the schedule is what the schedule is. And one day, Ovi's going to score 4, and then he might not score another for a couple of games. And I know it's balls in the air, but do you have the plan ready to go as soon as it happens?
I would say the plan is in the works. The great thing about Ovi is he's always full of surprises. At the beginning of the year, people are asking like, do you think there's any chance he does it this year? And here he's missed 16 games and he's on the precipice of it. And I think so. Everybody's like, oh, we better call some meetings here pretty quick and get things squared away, because he could have 2 or 3 big games and we're going to be down to single digits in a hurry. So they're definitely getting to work on it. I've been a little bit out of the loop with trade deadline stuff. I think I've missed on a couple of calls and a couple of meetings, but fortunately for them, that's not an area where I'm super strong. And we have a lot of people that are really strong at that in our group, in our organization. So I think it'll be great when it happens. It's going to be really cool to see. And I hope it happens. I hope it happens really soon.
And you hope it happens at home, I'm guessing, if you want to throw that caveat in there too. That'd be great for your fans.
I'll probably end up eating these words, but I've been telling people, anyone that'll listen, like, just Ovi's flair for the dramatic. It's not like he's going to try to do it, but for some reason, I just feel like it will happen at home. It's just going to work out that way, but we'll see. We have a lot of road games here down the stretch.
All right. A couple of things in this, and I know you're busy. I appreciate the generosity of your time. And I do want to ask you about your family here in a couple of seconds. But first, you mentioned Spencer Carberry, who's like, I'll just speak from a media point of view. I mean, he's a gift. I mean, he's a great communicator. You always learn something when you talk to Spencer Carberry. I know when you guys brought him aboard, there were other teams very much trying to hire Spencer Carberry. Just a wide brush thought. The floor is yours. What was it? Because I know you were integral in bringing him over to Washington. What was it that you saw in Spencer Carberry? I know he had been there previously in Hershey, but like, what did you see of him at the NHL level that led you guys to believe that he was the right guy for the Caps?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the relationship helped. Knowing him from Hershey and even in South Carolina where he started. I think the thing that's always impressed me about Carbs is he's a really good communicator, which I think is probably the number one attribute you have to have now as an NHL coach. You have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to connect with the players. You have to be able to hold them accountable, but also be able to help instruct and sit down with them and talk about what they need to do better and what they're doing well. And he does all that on a daily basis. You won't find a harder worker. Every coach in this league, the hours these guys keep are astronomical, and he's right up there with all of them. I think he's a high character guy. I remember reflecting after we hired him in Hershey, and I didn't know how he would do as a head coach at the professional level, and then you see a few months in how well he's doing, and it just kind of reinforced to me, like, when you have a guy that is a high character, hardworking guy, you're taking a lot less risk on when you make that decision. So for me, those attributes are all kind of, he's so strong in all those areas that big reason why he's having so much success.
Okay, I want to finish up by asking you one question about your family. And I've always recommended to people, as far as hockey books go, one of my favorite hockey historians is a guy named Craig Bowlesby, who's written a couple of tremendous books. One is called Empire of Ice, about the Pacific Coast Hockey Association, 1911 to 1926, and the other one, which is a quickie read too, 1913, the year they invented the future of hockey. Now, we always hear about moving the game forward, and whenever I hear that, I always think of your family, because Lester and Frank were the only ones that did actually physically move the game forward. This was always a rush game with the puck getting passed backwards. It was essentially rugby on ice, and it was your family, Frank and Lester, who moved it forward with the forward pass. So here becomes my question for you. Choose the question you would like to answer. One, given when I think of the Patrick family, I always think about rules and how they change the rules and how we're still dining out on the innovations from the Patrick family going back to the turn of the last century. So if you could change any one rule in hockey, what would it be? Or is there an old PCHA rule that you looked at and maybe look at now and said, you know what? I'm really proud that my family's name will forever be attached to that rule.
I'll give you an answer for both. I'll do the second one first so I can kind of think about the first one. But So this isn't totally an answer to your question because I don't know if it was a PCHL rule or not, but I always like this one because I think it was like an Austin Powers, Dr. Evil, or something about somebody claimed that they invented the question mark. And I feel like this is my family's claim of inventing the question mark. And that was, my father told me that I think one of them, either Frank or Lester, was the first person to put numbers on jerseys.
Yes.
And the reason they did that was so they could sell programs to you.
Correct.
So you could see what number each player was.
Yes.
So that's my family's little, we invented the question mark moment. We put numbers on the back of jerseys. I tell people that, they're like, no, that's not right. I'm like,
true.
I'm pretty sure it's right.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. 100%
so
true.
Give
that to the
I've got
Patricks.
someone to back me up on it.
Yeah.
A rule change. Most of the rule changes I come up with is usually I'm watching a game and something happens to us. I'm like, oh man, like I wish. And the one thing I always kind of like get, like, it's like thanks, but no thanks. It's like when you get that penalty call, a power play with like 30 seconds left in a period.
Yes.
To me, you lose that. You get the team, you're buzzing around in their end and setting up chances, and then the buzzer goes. Now you got a center ice face off, and you're regrouping from the neutral zone to start the next period. So I don't know, something where if there's a penalty call in the last minute of a period, the period just extends until the end of the penalty. And then as soon as that penalty is over, the buzzer goes. So at least you get the benefit of the full. If you got a team on the ropes,
sure,
the buzzer doesn't save them. And I'm sure social media, if they're listening to this, will have a bunch of opinions on this. And
well, okay,
I'd have to workshop a few things here to make it all work. But yeah, it feels like something that you should get more reward for a team potentially preventing a scoring chance by taking a penalty in the last minute of a period.
If you'll indulge me for 1 minute, I'll take that one step here.
Okay.
So every year I have one thing that I'm obsessed with. And for whatever reason this year, my thing is I don't ever want to, outside of opening of the period or after a goal, see a face-off in the neutral zone ever again. I think all face-offs should be right beside the net to increase scoring chances. I mean, we all know what face-offs in the neutral zone are anyhow. I think if your team goes offside, the face-off should come all the way back down into your zone. Now, people have said, okay, it's going to be more conservative with the zone entries, etc., and I understand all that, but I don't understand the idea of dropping the puck that far away from a scoring chance. And I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, not asking you to take it to the general manager's meetings, but if you want to, go ahead, present it as your own. Do you have an initial thought on getting rid of all neutral zone face-offs outside of the beginning of the period and after a goal?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm trying to remember, as you're telling me that, when I was going to the AHL meetings a lot in my prior role, there was a rule introduced where I think it had to do with power play. So a penalty called at the end of a period, so as time expired or after the period ended, the proposal was instead of having that face-off at center ice, that face-off should be in the offensive zone.
Yes.
So kind of what you're saying, but not as extreme maybe as what you're saying. And I forget why it got shot down. I think a lot of it was just general fan confusion reasons. But yeah, I'm with you. I think those, it's funny when you see how often guys get kicked out of face-offs in the offensive/defensive zone, and then you'll see two guys cheating incredibly in the center ice dot, and the ref kind of tries to straighten them out, and then eventually just drops the puck because it's like, let's just get going here. So it's like I see what you're saying about the relative importance of the face-offs.
Or we can take it historical and just start with the puck on the ice, and a referee isn't even in the circle. It just rings a bell, and that's how face-offs use. Whenever I hear someone say, like, I'm a traditionalist, I say, oh, you don't like the drop for the face-off? Because face-offs used to start with the puck on the ice. But I digress, and you're a busy guy.
You do the old street hockey face-off, right? You tap your stick three times, and then you go.
Yeah. Let's go back to street hockey. All right, now you're getting somewhere. Chris,
that's my first learned face-off technique. On that third tap, you hit their stick as hard as you can, and then you win the face-off every time.
And then you swing your hips around and box out, and the draw is yours, and you got possession.
There you go.
Chris, this is great. Thanks so much for stopping by. Congratulations on the Lindgren deal, and best of luck as trade deadline approaches.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Great talking to you.
There he is. Chris Patrick is the general manager of the Washington Capitals. And as I grab these books here to show you one more time, Craig Bowlesby is one of my favorite hockey historians. 1913, the year they invented the future of hockey. And it's a real quick read, folks, if you don't want to read like this sucker with a lot of words and a lot of pages, although this is really thorough. This is a great one because it focuses on the creation of the forward pass and what that meant for hockey, what that meant for the PCHA, and how that bled eventually, finally, into the National Hockey League. And then Empire of Ice, the rise and fall of the league. That's Frank and Lester started, and used innovations such as numbers on the jerseys. There was the forward pass. There was the introduction of the blue line. There was the introduction of the farm system as well. That is Patrick family. There's like a whole laundry list of things, and Zach will bring you into this one here. There's a whole laundry list of things that the Patrick family were responsible for. I've always made the point that this is the first family of hockey. When you look at like the one family who had the most effect on hockey, like still to this day, we see the things that the Patricks did between 1911 all the way through like to the 1930s. To say we didn't even talk about Lester going in net for the New York Rangers. The original E-Bug coming in out of the stands. Here he comes. There's a whole side story because they wouldn't allow a number of other goaltenders in net, and so Lester finally said, "Fine, I'll do it myself." It is like, honestly, whenever I think of the Patrick family, that is the first family of hockey. Period. You have a thought on that one, young man?
Yeah, it was pointed out in the chat by J-Rock that if it wasn't for his family, then we quite literally wouldn't have the Great Eight. That wouldn't be a thing. There would be no Great Eight if it wasn't for inventing the jersey numbers, which I thought was just kind of funny. Like full circle, he's now the GM while Ovechkin's going to break.
Eight. That is real. And now if I were a better host, I would have probably noted that right away and come back and said, well, if it wasn't for Lester and Frank, we wouldn't have the Great Eight. It would just be Alex scored again.
Yeah, exactly.
Dylan passed it to Alex.
That last minute penalty rule. I think that was interesting. The one that I've thought about in that moment, or went to alleviate that or change that, would be being able to elect for a penalty shot only in the final minute, or in the final time slot. Like if there's maybe you make it a number like 30 seconds. That would be the spot for me where you could say, hey, we're not going to take this penalty and we're not going to go to the power play because we don't want to have the momentum killed. We'll take the penalty shot. I think that would be cool, or having the option to push it to the next period and starting with it. But yeah, I mean, I like the idea of innovating and getting creative with rules.
No more neutral zone face-offs.
Yes, I do like that one.
I don't know about extending the period, but I do like the idea of you start the next period with an offensive zone draw. Anything just to create more action around. Like, what is the neutral zone? Like, the neutral zone is just something you just got to get through, right? That's a transition zone. Like, I always try to make as little play in that. Because, I mean, how many times have you seen, like, a really good game wrecked because, they clogged the neutral zone? Like, the neutral zone is where the game goes to die. It should be a place where, like, you just gather speed and get going into the offensive zone. So anything that I really think about these days is all just about, like, how do we get everybody out of the neutral zone? How does we get everything out of the neutral zone? And for me, it starts with face-offs.
By the way, to start the period.
For Adam, who asked in the chat a question about Nolan Patrick, no association with Nolan Patrick and the Patrick family.
No, I didn't even put that together. I was like, well, why? Yeah, that would make sense. There you go.
Marek wants shorter rinks. So that's a good one. There's just two zones, just two halves. Actually,
it's the same width, but
yeah. I just want to get rid of lines altogether. This goes back to my idea of having R&D camps every summer. If there's any sport that's dying for it, I think it's hockey. Just because hockey needs like a million years proof of concept. And I'm glad actually that Chris brought up the American Hockey League and those innovations. Because once upon a time, the American League was a place where you tried new ideas, right? You tried different things, rules, innovations. It was like more of a fun league. But then I guess the NHL, the American Hockey League, sort of got together and said, like, look, we're calling up a lot of players here. We don't want them playing with one rules package in the AHL or one way to play in the American League. And then, boom, now you call up to the NHL and, oh, yeah, by the way, now we do things up here differently. There's just got to be a place where you can try different things, try different ideas. That's why I always go back to, just do an R&D camp every year. Do like a summer league. Put a couple extra bucks in a few ECHL players' pockets and do like games twice a week. And you make it a TV sport for us hockey fans who still want to watch hockey, and maybe just different rules, different equipment, different configurations of the rink. I don't know. Come up with different stuff. I don't know. Anyhow, thanks for Chris Patrick.
I don't know. The configurations of the
rink.
Yeah,
here's why. Here's why. You want to tell you why? Because before the show today, you asked me about the Erie Otters Peterborough Petes, right?
Yeah.
And the coaches getting into it. Like, there was some poking of the goaltender that led up to all. We just saw the video of, like, coaches going at it in between. There was a lead up to the whole thing. But still, as far as the configurations of the rink go, like, I'm not saying, like, all of a sudden the Boston Bruins rink is triangular, right? Like, that, that's not like what I'm saying. Yeah, it's not like MLB. Every diamond is different, which I do like, by the way, but still. But you look at a rink like Peterborough, look how tight the boards are. So if you do like a hard rim on your dump in, the puck's shooting out to the front of the net.
You know what that sucks for? Lacrosse, by the way.
Really?
I played
Why?
lacrosse in that rink.
You did?
Because it just makes it sharper. So if the ball goes into that corner, it kicks way differently. Or if you miss on a shot and it goes into the corner, the rebound that goes out back the other way is very different than what a normal corner would be. It's just a side note, but I played there and it's nuts. I knew it was different, and then I saw that and was like, wow, this is something to behold.
Producer Vic, Vacation Vic, First Star Vic from Morning Cup of Hockey. I hate that you can ice the puck when you're shorthanded. It's true. We changed the rules. I hate that you can put your goalie back in after you ice the puck with a pulled goalie. Again, we changed the rules. Although you could just say it's a line. You could just say that one's a line change. I do like the first one, though. I do like the first one. Why all of a sudden do we change the rules? Just to make it easier. Like, you know what wrecked it? I'll tell you what. You know what wrecked a lot of things? How good the Montreal Canadiens power play was in the 1950s. Because that's when you had to serve like the full 2 minutes of a penalty, and Montreal would just throw out like Elmer Locke, Rocket Richard, and like the penalty, like they'd score like 4 goals and the game would be over. So if you want to blame anyone, blame the Montreal Canadiens. Or, as I like to do when anything goes wrong, blame our next guest. She is Shayna Goldman from The Athletic and the Too Many Men podcast. And Shayna, when things go wrong, I normally blame you. How does that make you feel today?
I mean, sure, you can try, but I'll just tell you how much wronger you are.
How much wronger? Oh, okay. First day with the new tongue. How's the language going? Okay. You're wronger, Marek.
It's going. It's going, okay? It's deadline week. We're writing 1 billion words at a time.
know.
Don't expect me to have perfect ones.
I was texting her today. I'm like, okay, this could be a total long shot because I know she's doing like a million things and trades are happening all the time and she breaks down all of them. But, then Jared Bednar started lipping off about analytics and it's like, okay, I think I know who we want to talk to about this one. And lipping off, I say tongue in cheek because really I think what Bednar was saying, I think you probably believe in, just so our listeners / viewers have context for this. And if I'm springing this on you last minute and you haven't seen this, I want to say that I apologize, but I really don't.
I did see it. Don't worry.
Here's Jared Bednar, coach of the Colorado Avalanche. This is interesting. This is comments on defenseman Ryan Lindgren now on his team.
Analytics is tricky because like we might not value the same things they value. Like our model is likely different, right? And and we may deploy him different, right? Like we have Taser and Kale. It was him and Fox. So he might see less time against some of the top guys in the league. He might see more in certain situations. He might see less time overall. But we look at the strengths of what we think are his strengths of his game and what we like about that. And we're excited about the physicality, the net front presence, like all the defending metrics. I think he's got pretty good ozone metrics as well. Like We've been struggling with our D to be productive with 3 pairs, and so to add a guy of his caliber for us is exciting, And like I said, the analytics side of it, can be tricky sometimes, If we feel like if we get an understanding of his game, get him clear on our system, deploy him the right way, we feel like those numbers will be moving in the right direction.
Okay, a couple of things there. Is it just me, Shayna, or whenever I look at Jared Bednar, I always think he's the guy in beer league that's still playing, is better than everybody else, and takes it way too seriously. He's in great shape. He's still got the hockey hair. He's still got the sort of little younger man hockey innocence about him. He still looks like he's the guy that's playing beer league and is always going to, but takes it way more serious than everybody else. Anyhow, your thoughts on what Jared Bednar had to say about Ryan Lindgren and, quote, the analytics.
I mean, I think he's right. I think he's pretty spot on with it. First of all, every team, let's say they have the same data set, right? Because we know that there's a bunch of private data companies and every team works with them. Say everybody use SportLogic. It doesn't mean that their models are the same, because that data is the base of what they build up from there. Every team does it differently, and the Avalanche have a very smart analytics department. So I would not be doubting them if they say, hey, the numbers can check out. Because like he mentioned, they're going to be using Ryan Lindgren differently, and I think this is the key to it all. There's different context for every single team systematically. There's different context for the quality of teammates and for the role that you're going to be asking a player to play. In New York, Ryan Lindgren played a role that was above his depths over the last 2 years, right? If you can't shake it with Adam Fox in New York, there might be something wrong with your game. And his game has declined not just this year, but over the last 2 years. And yes, the injuries have something to do with it, I think. But I think the system did too. I think it was too taxing for him to be as active in all 3 zones as he had to be with New York under Peter Laviolette. And I don't think that the Rangers made adjustments to fit his game a little bit more. I think this year, when you watch his game when he came back to the lineup, when he was healthy enough to play, you could see that he was missing the basics, right? He wasn't boxing out opponents the way he should have been. His stick wasn't in the right position. He wasn't doing his primary job, which is protecting the net. I think that he was going up too far sometimes in the defensive zone and playing a role that was bigger than what he needs to do based on his skill set and based on what his role is, because he has someone like Adam Fox at his side. I think that's problem number one, and I don't think you're going to have that problem in Colorado because, one, he's not going to play matchup minutes. Like Bednar mentioned, they have players who can do that already. And 2, they're not going to be using him in a top pair capacity. Then 3, you add in the fact that the Avs have a totally different system, and that I think their coaching staff has done a really good job maximizing players within it for years now. I would feel a lot more confident in what the Avs can get out of his game at this point versus what the Rangers did.
All right, to the big trade of the weekend, and that was very one of the things that I would come back to on the Bednar example too is the idea of public versus private models. And that which is public, I've always been warned against putting too much stock in people in NHL teams. And I always say to myself, listen, if you want to just end the argument, you want to make all of your private models public, I'm
please.
We'd love all of us. I know there's a very distinctive community, which my friend Shane is a vibrant part of, that would love to see these private models you use to scoff at the public ones. Now, Seth Jones is now a member of the Florida Panthers, to which Shayna Goldman says what?
Great. Honestly, great for everybody in this situation. I am working on something about Seth Jones. The trade kind of messed things up for me because it was supposed to be whether a contender could revitalize his game. Now we're specifically going to be looking at the Panthers. So I still have some legwork to do, to use their system and apply it to his game. But I think a couple things are true here. I don't think Seth Jones was ever the defenseman the Blackhawks envisioned him to be. The contract was an overpayment at the time. It's not just in hindsight. And I think they needed him to be something he couldn't on a team that didn't have enough support around him. There's a big difference between playing that role in Columbus when he had Zach Werenski, who, oh, look, is a Norris caliber defenseman and always has been, to what they had in Chicago. But I also think, I think that it's going to be tough for anybody to not just play well in that surroundings, especially the way everything has gone over the last couple of years, but to thrive in it, to survive in it. You're asking for a ton right there. So it's not really a shock that he struggled to the extent that he did. And while, yes, everyone can look at the quotes and say, well, he wasn't the leader they needed and it didn't work out in the room, whatever. I'm throwing that aside right now because I think everything got so bad in Chicago that sometimes you have to look through the trees and remember what has been going on there and put that context behind his comments as well.
The one thing, Colby Cohen was mentioning this on Morning Cup of Hockey this morning. I think it's a really good point. This isn't what Seth Jones signed up for. Like he was brought in not for a rebuild. He was brought in when the Chicago Blackhawks were still spending to the cap, significant, playoff expectations. Like this was at the end of what we now know as that era of empire for the Chicago Blackhawks in the NHL, right before the great fall and then the rebuild. That's when Seth Jones was brought in. Like he wasn't brought in like, okay, you're gonna shepherd Kevin Kurchinski throughout his first few years in the NHL and Ethan Del Mastro, etc. Like, no, that's not why he was brought in. He was brought in when this team was still deliberately competitive, not deliberately looking at the lottery every year.
Yes. I mean, okay, I look at the Blackhawks then, the team that he joined, and he should have known he wasn't joining a contender, right? Like, I know that they were buying at the time and they thought they were something that they weren't, but, you could kind of see things weren't going to go well, but not to this extent, right? He probably didn't think, okay, if I join this team, they're going to completely tear it down and not just rebuild, but go through one of the most painful rebuilds that I think are going to scare other teams off from doing it. So it's going to be a night and day experience to join a team like the Florida Panthers, who, one, don't need him to play the same role that he did in Chicago, two, have a ton more support for him, and three, are really good at maximizing defensemen within their system. And I know some of their cheaper, lower risk signings didn't work out this year like it did last year. But I think that here it's going to just be a totally different experience because he brings a lot to the table. Like this is someone who with the Blue Jackets was trusted to be a rover. And it's funny because if you go back to that Blue Jackets era, I do remember a lot of people talking about his underlying numbers and going, is he actually that good? And then, you kind of compare that to someone like the work of Allison Lucan, who is deep diving into why he's good and what the context behind the numbers is and what his role is. And I think that's important to keep in mind. But he was trusted to be a rover back then. He was really good at retrieving pucks, breaking them out of his own zone and rushing up the ice to join the offense. And he was also really sound defensively. If he can, reclaim some of those traits, which I think we still are seeing really, really, really deep below the surface in Chicago this year, it's going to work out really well for the Panthers.
Do you want to, how do I phrase this? Do you want to try to put your hand on the stove here and try to talk about goaltending with me?
Fuck it. Let's go.
All right. So Spencer Knight goes the other way in a first-round pick. And by the way, congratulations. Shane and I had a challenge next time we were on together. Who would say fuck first? You win. What do you think of the return?
I mean, I think the Blackhawks do need that cornerstone goaltender to be the backbone of their future. It is going to be a wake-up call for Spencer Knight because he has been playing behind a very good Panthers team. But I think he's been really good this year. Like, I've been really impressed with it because last year, when he came back, his numbers were a little bit worrisome. And the AHL, his numbers weren't great. And, it took him a minute to find his footing, but then he did. He's been, when you look at, like, the goals saved to have expected, I know it's not apples to apples because, their playing time has been different.
Yep.
But he's had stronger numbers than Bobrovsky at time this year. Can you sustain that across full season? We don't know. We've never seen him do it. But if they could use him as a 50-50 tandem guy and then start easing him into that starting workload to play 60% of the games, because I think he's going to have to adjust to playing a lot more. I think he's going to be a very good goalie there. It's just going to take time, and the numbers aren't going to be pretty as long as that defense is what it is. And it sounds like the Blackhawks need a lot of time before they're going to turn the corner.
Yeah, this is not, like I was saying at the top of the show too, like this is great, and they got a big piece back there. I feel bad if I'm Drew Comesso, I'm like, oh, I thought I was going to be the guy. But they're still ways away. This team is not going to get better. Like here's something for you. Do you think that San Jose is Chicago next season? Because right now it's still like, oh, look at San Jose and Macklin Celebrini, even though he's a game time decision today. Macklin Celebrini is doing this, and Will Smith that, and Askarov made this great save, and whee, isn't this fun? And here come the Sharks. Like reality sets in on a rebuild pretty fast. Like Chicago was that last year with Connor Bedard, and we all know what this year has felt like. Do you think that San Jose is Chicago next year?
Not quite. If I'm going to compare them to anyone, it might be the Ducks, because I think of the Ducks as like that fun up-and-coming team, and then it was let's focus on our defensive structure, and that's when the fun stopped. With the Blackhawks last year, when Bedard wasn't on the ice, nobody was having fun, and I think that's the big difference. The Sharks have a little bit more supporting talent. than the Blackhawks did, right? Like, and I know the Blackhawks went out and got some this past summer. They brought in Bertuzzi, they brought in Teravainen, they brought in some help. So it's not just Bedard, Nick Foligno, and nobody else, and Jason Dickinson. But I think the Sharks did a pretty good job with that. I like the addition of Tyler Toffoli, and Granlund was playing really well. And Wenberg makes a lot of sense because he can eat heavy minutes if they need him to. I don't necessarily know if the Sharks are going to be good anytime soon. I don't think they're going to be. But I think that they're doing a better job putting the pieces in place, because as much as the Blackhawks brought in those players, they didn't even play them with Bedard until after the coaching change, right? I think at the time of the coaching change, if I remember correctly, and I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, Bertuzzi and Bedard had only spent 15% of their 5-on-5 ice time together. That you have to go, then what was the point of bringing him in? It was to give Bedard someone so everything wasn't so daunting on the franchise cornerstone. I just think the Sharks coaching has done a better job. I know they're not perfect, but I just see a little bit more, like, I see more encouraging signs there than I do with the Blackhawks right now. I think the Blackhawks pulled themselves so far back even while they're already in the midst of this process, that it's going to be a lot harder to move forward.
A couple of minutes left with you. By the way, J-Rock in the chat, does Shayna do live shows where she interacts with the chat? She's awesome. How good are you at taking compliments these days? Good as ever?
Yeah, I'm totally great at that. I don't track the live chat at all while we do this. I don't know if I should.
No, J-Rock's just saying, like, because I know you guys don't on the Too Many Men pod, because you, Sarah and Allison, don't do that one like live on YouTube. But is there anywhere that people can interact with you on a chat, other than maybe I'll just put up your like phone number here at the end of the show? I can
there we go.
Just put up your cell number at the end of the show.
As you know, I don't answer my phone anyway unless it's a text. No, just like you can try tweeting at me.
That's true. That is true.
I am the worst with that. But no, you could tweet at me. Just if you're not an asshole, I answer.
All right, there you go. Just, hey, J-Rock, don't be an asshole. That's simple. Okay, real quickly, a couple of questions. NHL trade deadline week. Who are you most interested in? Like, who's piqued your curiosity more than any other team?
I am very intrigued by the Colorado Avalanche. I think it is a very impressive undertaking that they completely overturned their goaltending in season as quickly as they did. I think that they're a smart team, that they know when to spend, when not to spend, and I think they're very good at addressing their needs. While Lindgren isn't perfect, I understand the move for them. I really like what they did with their goaltending, and I keep looking at them going, what are they going to do with 2C, or what are they going to do with that third line that there's not as much emphasis on whether or not Casey Middlestat can be really good, right? And I think he's going to be better now that he has healthy wingers. But they are probably the most intriguing to me because I just don't think they're done yet. And I think that they've, made shockwaves through the NHL. If not them, it's probably Utah.
Why Utah?
Why not Utah? They're still in the playoff race.
They're still in there. I know we're all having fun, even though they just dropped one with the St. Louis Blues as well, which is another team that, like, you want to talk about like a bunny hop team, like that's the one, like, just when I'm about to jump on board, and we all love Robert Thomas, and I know you do as well on this program. Just when I want to get on board, bam, they just go like take it off the road into the ditch. Who are the St. Louis Blues to you? I'm not deflecting away from Utah. I'll go back, but the other team in that race with Vancouver and Calgary, who are the St. Louis Blues?
They've changed my mind a little bit after the offer sheets, I'm going to be honest, because I looked at them and I went, this is a team that I feel like is going to keep circling the drain and not do anything to get better. And I feel like the fact that they finally took some bold swings and they didn't just go for these same aging stars in their 30s and late 20s that you look at the contracts and go, this is going to be terrible. I have a little bit more like interest in what they're going to do. I'm all of a sudden interested in what this management group had to say when I definitely wasn't even just a few months ago. But I think that they're a team that they need to figure out their identity. And it's tough because they have stars in that, they're in their primes now. They're not, it's not that next wave of the Blues. Like, they are in it right now, so they have to turn it around quickly. I think that there's a way to do it and be really aggressive along the way. And I would like to see them try. Like, can you retool at this point? Because I think that they have to be a retooling team. I'm just not so sure. Like, they have a lot of contracts to work around.
Let me close with this. It is a question from the chat. It is from Johnny Lazarus, also known as Johnny Lazarus. Shayna, when will Ben Shelton finally get his major?
It's not going to be anytime soon because that man is not good on clay at all. It's why he skipped the Olympics last year to not have to play on clay. I think hard court's going to be his best bet. I think he finally is improving because he really got stagnant for a year there and I think a little full of himself. I think now he has the right confidence and skill and he's finally trending up that I'm like, okay, I could see it happening. but I'm not sure he's the next American player to do it. I like Tommy Paul and Taylor Fritz a little better still.
Is that your audition tape for the tennis channel?
No, absolutely not. I never, ever, ever am doing work about tennis.
I'm slowly, just so everyone knows, like I'm slowly trying to drag Shayna into being like this multi-sport commentator because she's gold with hockey. I'm like, every time I talk to you, it's like, oh, I'm watching this tennis. Oh, it's Aussie Open, so you can get me like 4:00 in the morning. Marek, I'll get these texts from you like, you should be watching this. I'm like, Shayna, it's 3:30 in the morning. I should be watching
I'm
nothing.
texting when you wake up. I'm texting you things saying like, you're gonna wake up now, or you're already up. You wake up at what, 5, 6 in the morning?
5:30.
Yeah, so you can watch primetime matches start at 5 o'clock. But now we're getting into the season that's perfect for you because French and Wimbledon, they're all starting around like 5, 6 a.m.
All right. Well, I will pay more attention when you do this as a second career. How about that?
Oh, come on. I'm
Trying
going
to
to
drag
be
you into it.
what is it? Jack of all trades, master of none. Nobody needs that.
Because the thing about you is like you'll go deep on it too. Like you're not just gonna go wide. Like you'll go deep on tennis too. You'll be like this. Yeah, you will be. No, don't.
That's
shake
mine.
Your head.
I'm
Don't.
never touching it. That is mine.
That's like baseball for me.
Yeah,
I love it. I don't want to do
something.
anything professional with it.
I wouldn't if I had to talk about the Blue Jays.
Look, I want that management staff just fired, like to the moon. Like Atkins and Shapiro, day late, dollar short, beat it. Now they're going to lose Vladdy and they're going to lose Bo. And they came in just blasting on Alex Anthopoulos. And all he's done is gone on to win World Series and build a juggernaut in Atlanta. And in my secret baseball fantasy, that's where Vladdy goes and he wins like 1 million World Series with Alex Anthopoulos.
I like that. That's it's like with Barkley in the Super Bowl. Like I rooted for him. I'm like, good. Let the Giants feel complete shame and embarrassment for how they handled that.
Yeah, that's what I want. Like I want Vladdy to go to where Alex Anthopoulos is and just win all the World Series. Anyhow, I digress. All right. Enjoy writing a bajillion words this week. And I really feel bad for you because I know what's going to happen. You're going to start writing on something and all of a sudden a trade is going to happen and you're going to have to Control A. And
you know what? I don't have that problem this week at all. I do not. I have cleared the decks. Now that Seth Jones has been traded, I'm just simply tweaking it. But everything else is just going to be as it happens. I finished everything else.
Look at you. Where do you find the hours? Holy smokes.
I don't know.
And you have like 1 million dogs to take care of too.
I know. I know. Everyone always asks me like, how do you get things done? Like, I don't know. You don't want to know.
Right.
I don't want to know. You don't want to know. It's fine.
How do you make it? Next time you're on, my first question is going to be, how do you make it through a day? Shayna Goldman, how do you get through a day? That's what I think I'm most curious about after knowing you for as many years as I have. Okay, you'll be good. Thanks so much for hopping on today. You're the best. You can find her at the Too Many Men podcast and also at The Athletic. She is the great Shayna Goldman. And you can find her on Twitter X, Hey Shay, HAYYY SHAYYY. I think I got that right. No? It's wrong?
Changed. Shayna Goldman _.
She changed it? When did she change it?
I know.
Are you sure you don't have a fake account? Are you sure?
Well, that would be bad if I'm the one getting got here. Yeah,
man.
I'm right. Shayna Goldman _.
Boring. Hey Shay was way better.
Come on,
Shayna. I'm gonna have to blast her for that. I didn't even ask her about the chips too. After she
I know.
She thought she was taking a shot at me by going after the Blue Jays. Meanwhile, I'm like, no one's hating on the Jays more than me right now.
I don't care.
No, just keep blasting, blast all of them. Blast all of them to the moon. All of them for what they've done to that. That was my first job, too, working Blue Jays games. Versa Foods. Selling hot dogs and Jumbo Cokes up and down the aisles. I just took the job so I could watch baseball. One reason I got into the workforce so I could watch baseball games. All right. Thanks to Shayna for stopping by. Want to let you know as well, Canada, your favorite contest is back. Roll Up to Win is back at Tim Hortons, and that means you could win millions of amazing prizes with just the swipe of a thumb. Imagine turning your routine Tim's run into an unforgettable vacation with sell-off vacations, a $1,000 Rakuten cash prize, or an all-new, all-electric 2025 Volkswagen ID Buzz. Even the simple joy of winning a free coffee or donut can make anyone's day. I agree with that. But you only have until March 23rd, so open up that Tim's app and get rolling. This is our game, Canada, so don't let this chance at millions of amazing prizes pass you by. Play Roll Up to Win on the Tim's app now. Rules apply. Canada only. No purchase necessary. Visit the Tim's app for details. Chat was lively. today. I couldn't help
Yes.
reading it, and there were some mentions of the chips that Shayna still owes me. People seem to really like Chris Patrick as well. Like, he's a new general manager, rookie season, but he's been with the organization for a lot of years, going back to when George McPhee was the general manager. He started as a scout and worked his way all the way up, not unlike Chris McFarland did. Although he started with where did Chris start? I think Chris started with the Islanders, and then started to work his way up. Anyhow, so Patrick's been with the organization for a number of years, and was there for the Stanley Cup. So I think when the Washington Capitals won the Stanley Cup, he was the 6th member of the Patrick family to win a Stanley Cup. Not too shabby, eh? That's not bad. Yeah. Not bad at all. Yeah. Anyhow, anything spicing your chili here as we get ready to get to our games of the night?
You want to do LTIR / Matthew Tkachuk? That's the one thing that I've been looking at and we left out and wasn't talked about. Because there's the whole Seth Jones thing and all that, but there's the other part.
Seth Jones comes in and you say, wow, how are the Florida Panthers going to afford this? How are the Florida Panthers going to create any wiggle room here for their general manager in advance of trade deadline as they look to defend a Stanley Cup victory from last year? Matthew Tkachuk to LTIR. Really, the only point that I wanted to make is the one that I already made, and that is I just want someone to ask Nikita Kucherov tonight what he thinks about it. Tonight's the Florida Panthers facing off against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think this one's going to be rough. I think this is one of those, like, okay, let's send the message for the postseason between the two, and I just want someone to ask Kucherov that question. Is that too much to ask? Ask someone.
It's the only
Nikita
question
Kucherov
that should
what he
be
thinks
asked
about
tonight.
Matthew Tkachuk going on LTIR before trade deadline. But the thing is, like, listen, I don't have any problem with any of it. I didn't have a problem with Pat Kane. I didn't have any problem with Nikita Kucherov. Didn't have any problem with Mark Stone. Everyone's fine with it because there's no appetite to change any of it. And we'll see even if there is when the CBA rolls around and there's a new collective bargaining agreement. We'll see who actually squawks or who just says, you know what, it's an imperfect system, but what are we supposed to do otherwise here? Like, I understand the idea of maybe if you're on LTIR and all of a sudden miraculously you're fine. Like, if you can't play in the last week of the season, maybe you missed the first game. I don't know, but in the Players Association, you can be assured is going to squawk about that. Until I see a better idea for it, then I'm fine with it. And listen, we'll see when Tyler Seguin shows up for the Dallas Stars. We'll see when Matthew Tkachuk shows up for the Florida Panthers. I don't know. Chicago Blackhawks were just the first ones to realize, we can maybe use this to our advantage.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I don't have a problem with it either. I was listening to the Morning Take, Leafs Morning Take guys, that is, and they were talking about Rosie's like, the problem is that you can go into the playoffs and now you can dress, let's say is maybe the better way to put it, like $8, $9, $10 million over the salary cap, depending on how you manage your roster throughout the season and if you have LTIR, and that's where he took issue with it. But I don't know, right? But he also did say, I want to give him credit for it, he did say, like, he doesn't have an issue with people utilizing this. It's more so the big picture conversation of being able to store and then use it late, like, have those later. Like, is that something that's going to come up with, like, the integrity of competition? If that, you know what,
first of all, we're talking about sports. Like, let's just drop the integrity word to begin with. Like, let's just stop. This is That's just professional sports. I mean, you know what the Edmonton Oilers used to do? Here comes history lesson again. Edmonton Oilers every year would store Reijo Ruotsalainen in Finland. Minnesota North Stars actually did this with Ron Wilson as well in Italy. And then come playoff time, all of a sudden that player would magically appear for their playoff run. Like, this is really nothing. This is if nothing else, this is a new twist on an old story. That's all it is. This is nothing new. And the Oilers did it. North Stars did it. Teams have done it before. They just don't have the wrinkle of the salary cap. But again, you know what? You know what this comes back to? My old blah, 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 blah about take the training wheels off the salary cap.
Yeah, that's the same spot that I go to. Like, you want this to go away? It's
Change it.
not
Change
the
it. The
LTIR and the IR that has to be fixed. It's the other areas of this.
The
But
other
that's a big
thing that
conversation that's for another time.
yeah, the other thing that people don't realize is like you don't get the player. Like while that play, like the Florida Panthers don't have Matthew Tkachuk right now. Like the Vegas Golden Knights didn't have Mark Stone while he was injured. Like that's not as if like all of a sudden like, oh look, they're playing with $100 million worth of hockey players. No, they're not. Will they have those for the playoffs? Yeah, but you got to get through a long slog here without those. Like the Dallas Stars don't have Tyler Seguin, don't have Miro Heiskanen. You don't get to use those. Obvious statement. You don't get to use those players. Right. So let's see which managers really have an appetite to push this as far as a change goes, or owners really have an appetite to change all of this, or just look at it and say, not perfect, but what is? And we'll just leave LTIR the way it is. Show me that perfect system. But again, take the training wheels off the salary cap. We've had this since 2005. Let's play with the salary cap now and change it now that we all sort of understand how this is supposed to work and how we all understand where the loopholes are to exploit. Now it's time maybe we play with the salary cap a little bit more. Okay. FanDuel, proud to connect fans to the major sports moments that matter to them. Roster updates from Daily Faceoff's fantasy Twitter /X feed. And unfortunately, no beautiful, sloppy, wonderful, exciting afternoon games. Just regular games at night. Ottawa Senators face off against the Washington Capitals at Capital One. It is Montreal and Buffalo at the Bell Center. Buffalo's an interesting team. I think that everyone's up for grabs for the right price there for the Buffalo Sabres, and I think that Kevin Adams is a motivated seller, but I don't think he's going to give anything away. I've mentioned countless times here. The Tampa and Florida are facing off against each other at Amarant Bank Arena this evening. Vasilevsky versus Bobrovsky. And will someone please ask Nikita Kucherov what he thinks about Matthew Tkachuk going in LTIR? Please, just humor me a little bit. Rangers facing off. Like this is a good little rivalry night, hey? Tampa, Florida. Islanders facing off against the Rangers. Those games are always spicy. San Jose faces off against your Toronto Maple Leafs. Zach Phillips, Macklin Celebrini, lower body injury, game time decision. Calle Yarncroke.
Did you see what? Sorry, did you see what happened with Celebrini? Warsawski said game time decision, lower body injury. 24 minutes later, Macklin Celebrini said he's pumped up to play in Toronto tonight. He's feeling great and ready to go. I was like, oh,
coaches love
whoops.
that. Coaches love that. Hey, coach. Look, dum-dum. Calle Yarncroke. I told you what his name translates in Swedish, right?
Iron Hook, right?
Yeah, Calle Iron Hook. In there tonight. Ryan Reeves, Iron Right Hook, is out for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And Los Angeles, Chicago, our first peek, the debut of a new goaltender with the Chicago Blackhawks. Spencer Knight gets the start tonight for the Chicago Blackhawks. Anything spicing your chili there? I know you're going to be busy with the Maple Leafs and the San Jose Sharks. Whenever I hear San Jose Sharks from a certain vintage, a lot of Maple Leafs fans can still hear the sound of Johan Garpenloff hitting the crossbar. That's an early 90s reference in your Toronto Maple Leafs San Jose Sharks rivalry.
Yeah,
going back to the early
rivalry.
90s. Johan Garpenloff, that's for the olds there, young man. That's for Garpenloff hitting the crossbar. Say that to a certain vintage of Toronto Maple Leafs fans and they'll shudder.
Yeah, I've never heard that name before. So,
Johan Garpenloff?
Oh, no, I have not.
Children. Okay.
I'm gonna be a scumbag here, and Johnny Lazarus, close your ears. I brought it up quickly in the chat this morning. I'm very interested to watch the game between the Rangers and the Islanders tonight. We had the conversation about like when do the Islanders wave the white flag and call it dead.
Yep.
I know that the Rangers are technically still in and around it, and they could make the playoffs here. There's a chance.
Yep.
I just feel like there's been so much sourness around that, and I keep watching and waiting here now. You got rid of Trouba, Laugh, Lindgren, but Rangers fans have mowed through their whipping boys. Like we had in Toronto Justin Hall, and he lasted years. and then he was gone. The Rangers whipping boy comes up and they just see you later. The next one comes. This has been like the season from hell from them from all aspects. Yeah. I feel like there's just going to be a new guy. One struggle, one bad pass, and Artemi Panarin, you're on the hot seat. So like that's kind of the team that I'm watching because they're just flirting with the playoffs. You bring in JT Miller, and then it's just like I don't know. I'm not convinced on them.
You know what your fans always do? Your Toronto Maple Leafs fans. You know what they always do as far as whipping boys go? They pick one, and it is always a defenseman.
Yeah.
It is Larry Murphy. It is Aki Berg. It is Corey Cross. It is Brian McCabe. It is Jake Gardner. It is Justin Hall. Like, there's always a defenseman. I don't know what it is about your fans, Zach. Maybe you do this on your show today. And whoever can come up with a sufficient answer, you do more smelling salts. I know you do it for 50 likes. You just bust out the smelling salts some more. You got a freshie? You got a freshie ready to go?
Bottle. Yeah, right. It's nuts. I did it yesterday, and my eyes were watering. I was crying on the show. I'm like, I need to finish this now.
If you can explain to me why Toronto Maple Leafs fans always pick as their one player who just gets like all the slings and arrows, all the venom heaped their way, it's always a defenseman. Always, 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 always a defenseman. This goes back to Larry Murphy, who they ran out of town. And then Larry just went on to win Stanley Cups. It's like, what are you doing? Your fans have ruined more defensemen than any other fan base has ruined defensemen. How about that one?
Well, a lot of people are worried that Larry Murphy situation will happen with a forward if he decides to leave this coming summer, Jeff.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. We're going to have that conversation now. Now we don't have time. Okay. Thank you to Shayna Goldman from The Athletic and the Too Many Men podcast for stopping by. Thank you to Chris Patrick, the general manager of the Washington Capitals, and the Washington Capitals for making him available, A, on a game day, and B, in advance of trade deadline. Well, to see what the Caps end up doing. Like, I very much am of the belief that this is, as I mentioned with Chris, I think this is going to be more tweak than trade deadline for the Washington Capitals. But as I mentioned off the top of the show, I think that this is going to be the week of surprises around the NHL. Always a trade or two that we didn't see coming. Oh, I didn't know that player was available. Oh, I didn't know this guy asked for a trade. And then, bam, it happens. I just don't know that it happens at or on trade deadline. By the way, our coverage here at Daily Faceoff gets underway at 11 o'clock Eastern, concludes at 4 o'clock Eastern on Friday. On behalf of Zach and everyone behind the scenes here, which is pretty much like me and Zach, we kind of keep it tight and bright. Thanks for joining us here today. Thanks to everybody in the chat, everyone listening, everybody watching, interacting, or just enjoying. We thank you for your attention. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. as always, 9 a.m. Eastern, is Morning Cup of Hockey. Johnny Lazarus of She's the One. And Colby Cohen with Morning Cup of Hockey, DFO Live at noon, and then this program, 3 o'clock Eastern. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are back tomorrow, 3 o'clock, with The Sheet. Thank you. If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.